Trump is lifting restrictions on hunting in national parks, refuges, and wilderness areas. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Add AP News on Google. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Share MADISON Wives Act. President Donald Trump's administration is quietly pushing national park, refuge, and wilderness area managers to dramatically scale back hunting restrictions, raising questions about visitor safety and the impact on wildlife. U.S. Department of the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum issued an order in January directing multiple agencies to remove what he termed unnecessary regulatory or administrative barriers to hunting and fishing and justify regulations they want to keep in place. Expanding opportunities for the public to hunt and fish on department-managed lands not only strengthens conservation outcomes, but also supports rural economies, public health, and access to America's outdoor spaces, Burgum wrote. The department's policy is clear. Public and federally managed lands should be open to hunting and fishing unless a specific, documented, and legally supported exception applies. Order clears the way for tree stands, training dogs, and more. The order applies to 55 sites in the lower 48 states under the National Park Service's jurisdiction, according to the National Parks Conservation Association. Managers at various locations have already lifted prohibitions on hunting stands that damage trees and training hunting dogs, using vehicles to retrieve animals, and hunting along trails. According to an NPCA review of site regulations the organization recently performed after learning of the order, the New York Times was the first to report on the changes. The hunting season in the Cape Cod National Seashore in Massachusetts, for example, would be extended through the spring and summer. Hunters in the Lake Meredith National Recreation Area in Texas would be allowed to clean their kills in bathrooms, and hunters would be allowed to kill alligators in the Jean Lafitte National Historical Park and Preserve in Louisiana. An effort to save hunting. Burgum's order comes as hunting continues to decline in the face of increasing urbanization. Only about 4.2% of the U.S. population identified as a hunter older than 16 in 2024, according to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and U.S. Census data, leaving state wildlife agencies short on revenue from licensed sales and excise taxes on guns and ammunition. Hunting advocates and conservative policymakers have been exploring multiple avenues to keep hunting alive, including promoting the sport to women and young children, creating seasons for more species, and expanding hunter access to public land. Hunting is currently allowed across about 51 million National Park Service acres spanning 76 sites, although only about 8 million of those acres lie in the contiguous United States, with the rest in Alaska, according to the NPS website. Fishing is allowed in 213 sites. NPS sites typically adopt state hunting and fishing regulations, although they can impose restrictions that go beyond them to protect public safety and wildlife resources, like prohibiting shooting along a trail or near buildings. Read more. I'd love to know the problem we're trying to solve. Dan Wenk, a former Yellowstone National Park superintendent and NPS deputy operations director, said park managers establish their regulations by talking with stakeholders, and as a result, most of the restrictions have been widely accepted. He said it makes no sense for the Trump administration to append that structure without substantial public discussion. Process never seems to stand in the way of many things with this administration, Wenk said in a telephone interview with the Associated Press. This was never a big issue. I'd love to know the problem we're trying to solve. Then I could understand the costs that it's going to take to solve it in terms of resources and visitor safety. Interior Department spokesperson Elizabeth Peace said in an email that the order is a common-sense approach to public land management, and promised that any closures or limits needed for public safety, resource protection, or legal compliance will remain in place. For decades, sportsmen and women have been some of the strongest stewards of our public lands, she said, and this order ensures their access is not unnecessarily restricted by outdated or overly broad limitations that are not required by law. She did not immediately respond to a follow-up message inquiring about whether the department made any public outreach efforts leading up to issuing the order. Hunting groups applaud the order. The Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, which works to preserve access for hunting and fishing, posted a statement online in January calling the order a balance between wildlife management and outdoor traditions hunters and anglers support. Ducks Unlimited posted a statement in March saying Burgum's order recognizes duck hunting